Welcome to another episode of Unraveling Her with me, your host, Nikki. And today, as you can tell, I have a guest with me.
Llana Rojas.
And today we'll be unraveling her story and what that looks like. And she's going to be unraveling that journey of owning her own business and just seeing what that's all about. So, first off, tell us, who are you?
Okay, so my name is Llana Rojas. I'm originally from the Philippines, in Cebu specifically, and I moved here when I was 12 years old with my mom and my dad and my sister. And then since then, I have just been trying to figure out how life is going to be in the US. It was a struggle at first, and I was a very quiet and shy kid, and then eventually I found my voice. I joined the military when I was 17. It was senior year of high school, and then I went to basic training right after high school. It was the Army National Guard at that time that I was in, and then for 6 years. After 6 years, I joined the Air Guard instead. So right now I'm in Air National Guard right in Minneapolis, St. Paul base, and I work as a analyst. So we deal with maintenance data in the aircraft. And then right now, I've owned my business for the last 5 years, full time just the last 2 years. And it's a jewelry and activewear business called Letsroar, and it's all about supporting military sexual assault survivors specifically. I'll talk more about what Letsroar means to me later.
That's beautiful. You're so driven. Oh my goodness. As people who come from the Philippines, we're always striving to find a better life, and you found that through your business, and that reflects a lot of who you are. So that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. If you're new, so this is going to be a new season of Unraveling Her, and we'll be, like I mentioned, unraveling different stories from different backgrounds. And I've asked each guest to showcase an artifact that best represents them. And so we'll start off with your artifact and
Okay.
what that looks like and
So
how that represents you.
I actually brought a jewelry piece from my brand, and this was hard to think like what really represents me, right? Because I thought the military is a big part of me, and I thought, okay, maybe I could bring my uniform hat, but really, Let's Roar, that whole brand is represents me and my story and what I want for people to get out of it. And then so I brought in this diamond necklace because I think with a diamond it goes through so much pressure in the beginning, right? It's not clear, or like it's very, like, I guess it's dirty in the beginning, right? And then they
Yes.
mine get it from the ground, and I feel like, but even with all that, like, it becomes something brilliant, shiny. And I think it represents my strength, in that I've gone through so much pressure as a kid and in the military, but I've been able to, like, really be resilient and do something out of my experiences. So I think that's why I'm like, maybe I am a diamond, you know? And so
Yes.
yeah, this is what it looks like. It's a
Look at
little
that.
heart. It's a
That
heart
is
shape, because I think that even though, like, at one point, I didn't necessarily have felt or had so much love around me, but now I'm like, realize I've had so much love around me, within me, from God and my friends and family, and I feel like no matter what I've experienced, like, I'll always have the heart and the love, and for myself and others.
beautifully said. No, I feel like a diamond's a beautiful representation of who you are. And transitioning from a different country to another shows how resilient you are because you go through so much pressure from just being familiar with the language and being familiar with the customs and things like that. I know if you've ever had the experience where growing up you're trying to be like the other kids and you're trying to be part of their trends. And I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of resilience in just accepting who you are and where you're coming from. And yeah, I love that.
I mean, kind of going off of what you said about the language, like, especially the first year I was here in the US, I didn't really speak. I was very self-conscious about my accent. I understood English. I was really good. My grades were perfect the first year I was here in sixth grade, but I didn't really speak. I was very shy, and I was actually bullied too because I was just very, like, quiet, reserved kid. So it took me about a year until I finally really got used to speaking English, and, like, didn't care so much about my accent. But that was definitely a challenge. It's just, like, learning how to, like, fit in, and, like, learning to, like, be okay with, like, now speaking this completely different language compared to, like, me speaking, my dialect, which is Bisaya, and then Tagalog all my life.
Exactly. No, I feel like A lot of my listeners who are listening from the Philippines can relate to trying to learn English and being self conscious of the way you're speaking, the way your tone of voice is, and messing up. And so, this is kind of a reminder to you that it takes time. Give yourself grace because the best way to learn a language is to surround yourself with other English speaking people. And so, this is a representation of resilience right here. And I can relate to that too. I feel like growing up, I tried to forget my language so much, just trying to fit in, you know? And so for the first 5 years of my life being here, I tried to forget it. And I kind of regret that because, you know, I'm slowly losing that. But when I went back to visit my family, it just felt so nourishing to be around that environment again. And I know you were in the Philippines
Yes,
too. So how was that? Tell me
it
about
was
that.
really great to see family. I was there in February. I had my cousin's debut. She's the one who helps me with my business since like 4 years ago. So I made sure that I was there. And then I had another story of myself is actually I've met a lot of my half siblings that I just found out about 2 years, a year ago. We all met for the first time, at least 5 of us met for the first time last year. And so that's a whole different thing that I haven't shared to anybody really. Like I've shared to a couple friends, but not really publicly in social media. But that's something that like has been really life changing. So I'm glad that we were able to meet again, at least my two siblings. Now my sister is here from Dubai and she's visiting me. It's her first time in the US. So like things has just been working out, but it's just crazy how like there's more to life and I'm
Yes.
finding out more and hopefully we will find more of our half siblings.
That's amazing. It's just like the more you get older, the more things you're uncovering about yourself and others. That's beautiful. Yes. Transitioning into life Llana had at the military and currently is. What's the reality of women like in the military?
Um, just for like based on my experience, I can't speak for everybody, I guess. Just what I've noticed, there's not a lot of us, especially if you're like in services like the army, or sorry, branches like the army. There's not a lot. Like for example, when I first came to my unit, there was about 10 females compared to like 100 males, and they still had us kind of share the same barracks, which was really like I was not comfortable with that. I was like 18 years old. And then I seen a lot of, like different, like very like sexual jokes, harassment, and even assault throughout my career. Granted, I know it happens to everybody, but it happens a lot more to women, and that's what I've noticed. And I think what I've noticed too, like there's so many smart like women in the military, but a lot of us are kind of like afraid to speak up or afraid to like be noticed. So also, if you're gonna want to be respected, sometimes I feel like some women think that they have to be really hard, they have to be really aggressive, or like, more mean than the men, or like, so it seems like you have to do a lot more to be respected or noticed. At least that's just what I've like noticed. But other than that, like it's growing. The number of women in the military is growing. There's a lot more different jobs that we are able to do, and even just recently, like they allowed women to be in first line. But yeah, like somewhere like you're like first line combat. Yeah.
Wow, I feel like, yeah, like you mentioned, being in the military, you kind of have to dim down your intelligence and have kind of a colder presence to you and really tap into your masculine energy. That's kind of tough. How did you go through that and then come out and try to tap back into your femininity?
Um, it's hard. I think I've had a lot of masculinity growing up. So at first it wasn't such a struggle for me because I felt like I was more like tomboyish, like but then I also realized like I wanted to be more feminine. So that's the change was trying to get rid of that mindset of like being so masculine and like being this aggressive, like not aggressive but like tough, like hard love, like very reserved, like I don't
Right.
want anybody to talk to me, so I always have that like like resting B face,
Yeah, yeah.
RBF. But overall, like I met more like really great people, and I have learned to trust men more. I learned to trust myself more, and I learned to open up more and be more feminine too, and not necessarily have to be so like tough. And that I didn't need to prove myself to be worthy of being in the military by being tough like them. Yeah.
That's really well said. Which goes on to our next question, which is what advice would you give to young women who are considering joining the military?
I would definitely tell them to research, talk to people that have been in the military, talk to other, females in the military, talk to the different branches, talk to multiple recruiters. Don't just listen to the first one and believe what they tell you. And yeah, seek out other women that's been in and take your time. Take your time choosing, but also prepare yourself in the beginning with like physically, in order to like for it to be easier for you once you're in with training. You're more physically like fit, I guess, or you're able to keep up, because that's one of the biggest thing that I was worried about in the beginning, whether I would be able to keep up with the physical demand.
Right. No, that's a huge thing. And, with a lot of the recruitments going on, it starts in high school. And I have a few listeners who actually are considering joining the military because of the recruitment that is going on in high school. And so they have a lot going on. And yes, the physical demand is one thing, and, the mental is another thing. So those two are big things to consider.
Yeah,
For sure.
definitely.
So, with all that being said, let's move into Let's Roar and how your business came to be and what that journey looks like.
I remember one night I was at drill. I think this was in 2020. I was talking to my friend. I was like, I think I'm ready to start a business. But I want to start with jewelry first because it's easier, less capital. But we're trying to figure out a name, and I just kept going back and forth. And I finally it just came to me like, let's roar. I wanted something that, would have that voice strength. And so I was like, okay, I think that makes sense. And then so yeah, it really started at drill, and then after that I just decided like I need to get out of my comfort zone. I need to start posting, and I need to like be my own model, because that was really hard for me to show myself and be comfortable with being seen and like promoting myself. But I had to really get rid of that mindset, like stop being shy. If this is what you want to do, you got to go for it. And this was around COVID time, and it was really part-time. Like I had a couple pieces. I think I started with like a couple $100. I was doing a lot of the pictures just at my parents' apartment kitchen. And it just started with friends, supporting, buying from me. They would pick up at my apartment or whatever. And then I started doing more pop-up shops. So I, saw more places where you can pay to like do a pop-up.
Yeah.
And then eventually I got deployed like a couple months after I launched my website in January 2021. I got deployed a couple months after, but I didn't want to stop, so I still like tried to create content while I was deployed. I asked a bunch of my friends, so like, can you model this, like let's do this. And then eventually I even got stuff shipped on base, and I could sell some stuff there too. And then I started doing like clothing. And then when I got back, I worked full time still as a project manager. And then I would do pop-up shops on the weekend, or like even after work, I would still like work on my business. And then eventually I realized like, I think I could do this full time, even if it's just started as like a little kiosk pop-up shop at the mall. And I found a spot, and it was like just a table and a rack. So I decided to do that, and I just went for it. I worked myself. It was like 7 days a week. You gotta open like 10 hours a day. And it's, yeah, they're just there, like table. And then and eventually I found a spot at Eden Prairie Center for a storefront, and it was only like 650 square foot. But then so I went for it, I got approved, and I did not expect that at all. And then actually after that, 1 month later, they offered me a bigger spot, which was like times four the size, like it's 2,200 square foot. And I moved everything like within 3 days.
Wow.
To the bigger spot, and I didn't have that much stuff, so it was very bare. And it's not until the last couple of years I've been adding more stuff to the store that it feels like a store, but for a while it was very bare.
That's incredible. Oh my goodness. You were back to back with being deployed and then just keeping up with your business. That's incredible.
I do have another story with the
Yes,
whole. So
please.
when I opened the store downstairs, the bigger spot, the day after I drove to Texas for my training, for my Air Force training for my new job. The day after, and I was gonna be away for 2 months, and I was learning my analysis job, which was pretty heavy. And then so I was running both the storefront and the pop-up shop at Ridgedale, having 2 employees each day while learning my job, being away in Texas. So that was the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life. It was stressful, but it made me more confident with myself that I can do whatever it is that I want to do, and that it's possible to, like have a life, military, and then the business. And like, yeah, so it's crazy.
For all my listeners, this is an example of a powerful woman right here who is being challenged literally left and right, but yet chooses to keep going because she sees the vision and she wants to embody her strength in that. That is so beautiful. I love that. I feel like a diamond, you're pressured and challenged in so many ways, and you're shining. You're literally thriving.
Thank you.
That's so awesome. In our culture, there's this Filipino word called discarte, if you're familiar with that.
Yes, yes.
My mom and my dad use that word so many times, and to me, that means figuring it out. Creating a way, and you just figure it out. And you found that for yourself. And even though you had Air Force training and things like that going on, you figured out a way to still push through your business, and look at where it's at right now. This is a good example of where you could be. You know, for my younger listeners who are listening out there, it's possible. Keep doing what you're doing, because in the end, it's really all worth it. All the pressure you're going through is all worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
You talked a little bit about your business and coming up. Can you kind of describe, I know you have an acronym for ROAR, so can you kind of elaborate on what that means?
So Letsroar really represents Speak Up, Stand Up, Support Sexual Assault Survivors. So it's really about having that voice, and the voice to speak up for yourself and report, and also for others if you see it happening, you know, whatever it is, even if it relates to assault or not. But just being able to stand up for others, and because a lion's roar can be heard from 5 miles away, so it's really used to deter enemies, right, and like protect their family. So I want that to have the same, like, people to have the same mindset, like, we got it, let's do it together, let's have that community that we support one another, and that, you know, when we see something is wrong, like, we report. And like, because, you know, when I had experienced like harassment while I was deployed, and I've never had to report anything in my life, but I knew that if I didn't, he was going to continue, you know, harassing or doing worse to other women on base. So I've never done something like this, but or like that, but I knew that I needed to do that. And but I'm glad that I did, because that's when I realized, like, okay, like, you got it, like, you can speak up for yourself. You don't have to, like, just make it, like, you know, not say anything about it because you're scared of how you're gonna be looked at, or like whether you're this and that. So but yeah, so that's really what my mission is with my brand.
I love that. No, that's really well said. It really goes into like a general term too, where a lot of women who do experience those things feel like they can't speak up just because they're still trying to process what happened, and they're like, okay, did that really happen? And so it's hard for us to kind of speak up, because like you said, it's hard, because what if we're looked a different way? What if people are assuming that, oh, I'm faking it, and like they believe the other person's side? And so it just, you go through so many of these thoughts as a woman that it's difficult for us to speak up. And so I love how your brand kind of highlights speaking up, and how a lion's roar could be heard from miles away, and because our voice is a powerful tool.
Yes.
And so this is what I want to do with this platform too, as well as use my voice and bring guests on who can share their stories and inspire you to do the same. And one last question, where can people find you? Around the area? Are you on the internet? Where can we find Let's Roar, and how can we learn more about you?
Yeah, so you can definitely find me at Eden Prairie Center. It's the first floor in front of Eddie Bauer. And then I'm online as well. So it's Letsroar.shop. And then I'm also on TikTok shop. And you can find me on Instagram. My @ is Letsroar_. I think that's it. And then eventually we also do pop-up shops here and there, but it's just kind of random. But yeah, for the most part, we're at the shop.
Awesome. Yeah, you can also find that link right here, or you could also find it on the description on the show notes. So once again, thank you so much for coming to my show. And I did want to say you are the very first guest that I have on my show, which is a big deal. And for my first guest to be a woman of color who is also Filipina, I think is a milestone. So
Thank
I'm
you
just
for
so
having
happy.
me. I'm so proud of you, and this is like such a great platform, and I cannot wait to see where this goes for you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.